Welcome to Laguna Woods Stories, and we're very happy to be back in our studio after more than a year of not being here. And on our maiden voyage today, we are very happy to welcome to our studio Fred Sherman, and Fred is a dentist.
Oh, was a dentist.
Was a dentist, okay, retired dentist.
Yeah, until about 35 years ago, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
And you have been living here in the village for the last, I think you said 8 years.
8 years.
All right. And so let's find out a little bit about Fred as a person, because, you know, dentists are people too. And then we'll find out, I have some questions about dentistry and about some of the ethical issues that we face in the field, and how to choose a good dentist. And since you're no longer practicing, you don't have a dog in this fight, so to speak, but
that's right.
But you can share with us some principles. So, Fred, where did you begin life's journey?
Began in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, okay.
That's right.
Did you spend a good portion of your life in the New York area?
Maybe 2-3 years there.
Okay.
Then moved to Bell Harbor, which is a town that's part of the borough of Queens, still in New York City, but
right.
Lived 1.5 blocks from the Atlantic Ocean. It was on the Rockaway Peninsula.
Very nice, very nice. Okay. And did you go through all the public schooling there? Or?
Went to public schooling there, graduated from Far Rockaway High School, which is, I should say, Bernie Madoff's alma mater, but also Richard Feynman, the physicist,
I
graduated
see.
from there. So
the good and the not so.
That's right.
Good,
and then went to Cornell University. And
what does a dentist? Did you know at that point that you wanted to be a dentist?
No.
No.
I didn't know until actually my third year of college.
What did you major in at
I was
Cornell?
majoring in psychology.
Really?
But then decided, because my dad had died early and I wanted to relieve my mom of the financial issues, so I decided to leave Cornell after 3 years and go to dental school. I applied to dental schools and ended up at NYU College of Dentistry.
So then after 3 years of college at Cornell, you changed to dental school at New York University.
In New York University.
And how long a course is that?
That's 4 years.
4 years. Okay,
4 years.
So a total of 7 years.
Yes, and wonderful living in Manhattan for 4 years.
Right. Okay, and how was dental school kind of different from your first 3 years of college? Was it?
Well, it was specialized, of course, and in dental school, the first year particularly is almost identical to the first year in medical school.
I see.
Because you're still taking basic science courses,
Chemistry,
anatomy, biochemistry, anatomy, physiology, histology, pathology. And in fact, at Harvard, at that time, I don't know how it is now, but the medical and dental first year classes were combined.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. So you really kind of have to know the function of the entire body, even though you're just working on the mouth.
That's right. Although at that time, we would did a full body dissection.
Ooh.
In anatomy, whereas I don't think they do that anymore. So we spent one full semester on full body dissection, and then the second semester on head and neck.
Wow. Okay. You finished dental school, and somewhere along the line you acquired a wife and children, I think?
That's right. Well, I finished dental school in 1961, had an internship at the VA hospital in Long Beach here, yes. And then
that's what got you to California?
As I said, my dad had died, and my mom remarried 3 years later, a man who was living in California, in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I came out here, and it was paradise. So I said, this is where I'm going to live.
I moved from Connecticut to
Okay,
California,
so you know
about the same difference. And I
Sure.
came out to interview for the job in February with snow on the ground in Connecticut, and it would be really hard to pass up an offer to live in California at that point. Yeah.
And then 2 years in the Army. I went over to Korea for 13 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I was in San Francisco for the last 9 months. Of course, I had the orientation at Fort Sam Houston in Texas to start. And then started in private practice in a partnership in 1964 and in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. Okay. So your whole time of practice was in Southern California, was it?
Yes.
All right.
And then I started my interest in dental ethics probably about 10 years later.
All right.
When an oral surgeon to whom we used to refer patients was the president, and he said, you guys have to get involved. And that started it. And I've been really involved in dental ethics even now.
Very good. We're talking to the right guy then. You know, I've been concerned as just a person who goes to dentists periodically that there's a potential conflict of interest, a very big conflict of interest in dentistry, kind of like in auto mechanics, and that is the person who diagnoses the problem stands to profit from fixing the problem, and so there may be some temptation to kind of overprescribe. I'm sure I'm not the first one to have thought of that.
No, not at all. But, well, that is something that has come in, I would say, the last 45 years.
45?
You know, originally dentists were not allowed to advertise.
Oh, right.
That wasn't until the mid-'70s that they said, no, it's violation of First Amendment rights. So,
really?
And same thing with attorneys. They couldn't either.
I remember that there was a time when it was considered unethical. And some of the attorneys did advertise on television, famously. And,
Not back then, though.
Yeah.
You didn't see it back then. Now you do, of course. Okay, so the advertising started the whole thing with promotion. And when I went to school, we were taught, do only what is necessary. You know, when you diagnose, it's only what is necessary. Don't do anything that isn't necessary. So that when somebody would come in and say, well, I don't like the way my teeth look, which is cosmetic dentistry,
right.
You almost discourage them from doing anything unless something was very obvious. Because most of the time when somebody was looking at themselves, they were in the mirror right up here and say, oh, let's turn this way a little bit. And I remember would hold the mirror a little bit of a distance and say, well, look now, do you really see that? Okay, but it became something that I guess it was okay now to promote appearance. So naturally that opens it up to some ethical problems about, okay, because those are the real profit centers in dental offices.
Really?
Yeah, and yes, that is, in fact, even insurance companies will not pay for work done purely for cosmetic reasons.
That makes sense, because you'd run out and buy a policy, get the work done, cancel the policy.
Sure, sure. So that, again, ethical problems arose just from that, the idea that dentists were now allowed to advertise their services. It wasn't any longer considered unethical to at least expose patients to possibilities of corrections. And of course, there were some ethical violations with that too. And one of the things that I did mention in the on Next Door when we were discussing it was that how do you find an ethical dentist? How do you know if a dentist is ethical?
Right.
But that's really, how do you know if a mechanic is ethical?
And you don't.
You don't. But with dentistry, the one thing that I think has helped with regard to dental ethics is organized dentistry. In other words, the American Dental Association, which is composed of state dental associations, which are further composed of components, so that in larger areas, such as Southern California, there is the Orange County Dental Society, the Los Angeles Dental Society, the Harbor Dental Society. There are a whole bunch of dental societies. And they're the ones who really handle ethics issues, because the ADA and the California Dental Association has a code of ethics.
How would that work? Would it be that a patient would file a complaint? Is that how it starts?
That's exactly how it starts. And what I was trying to do was say the best way, if possible, if the dentist is a member, then he's agreed to abide by the code of ethics, and you file a complaint with the component, and they actually have an examining panel and a peer review set up to where they will examine the treatment and see if it was done properly.
Okay. So a panel of dentists would
That's right.
So if I feel like I've been ripped off, I paid for something I didn't get, or something was done improperly, then I could file a complaint with
the component, the Orange County Dental Society.
Okay,
that's who you would go to, not the California Dental Society.
Okay, so the most local.
The local, yeah.
Branch. So here that would be the Orange County
Dental
Society. And
now the one thing is that, and the ethics aspect, don't get into fee disputes.
Okay.
But certainly if work is done improperly, very often if they find for the patient, and it's a very fair system, it's not something that's there to protect the dentists, so it's fair. So very often they will find in the patient's favor.
They're trying to protect the reputation of the
of the profession.
Of the profession. I would say industry, but it's a profession.
That's right, sure.
Yeah.
So the profession may say, okay, we agree that the work was done improperly, and when the complaint is filed, part of that application, that complaint, is what will it take, what are you looking for as a resolution to the problem? So the patient very often, well, if I get my money back, I'll be satisfied. So if they find in favor of the patient, they'll say, okay, this patient should be given a refund. And it's very often it started with the patient asking for it in the first place, and the dentist saying no. See? So that's when the complaint is made, and I've often wondered, I've always thought that the best way to resolve a complaint like that is give the patient the refund, because what follows takes a lot of time.
So you're saying that if the dentist gets a complaint from a patient, give them the refund rather than go through the whole long procedure.
Don't go through the whole hassle of having to go through the system. Now,
probably doesn't help your reputation.
It doesn't help your reputation either.
Yeah.
But then, okay, let's say that they say, okay, this patient should get a refund, and the dentist says, no, I won't give you a refund.
Oh, okay.
So then the next step is, and again, it's a very set procedure. It takes time, but it goes up to the state, the California Dental Association. Okay, and then what happens is they attempt to convince the dentist to give the refund. When they don't, if the dentist doesn't give the refund, which is something that they've agreed to abide by, the decision of the committee, then it goes to a hearing, which is like a trial. But the worst thing that can happen really with that is the dentist is kicked out of the association. Right. That's it. They have no licensing power. That's the board. The California Dental Board can only do that. But if a dentist is disciplined by the state association, by the Judicial Council, and I was a member of that for 12 years, then that's reported to the state.
I see.
So then the dental board does whatever they are going to do or want to do, but...
You know, if I want to find a new dentist, I should check to make sure that that dentist is a member of the association.
Well, that's what I suggested. It's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
But still, at least you have a dentist who
kicked out.
has agreed to abide by a code of ethics.
I should say he or she hasn't.
He or she
hasn't been kicked out. So that's one thing to look for.
That's right.
Yeah. You say that you said that the association doesn't get into fees disputes. What if I think that I'm being grossly overcharged for some work?
They won't get into that.
Okay.
There's no way. In other words, one of the ramifications of getting into that would be a legal problem with monopoly. In other words, price fixing.
Yeah.
Because, okay, what should the fee be? It should be, you can't do that.
Right, okay. So the dental association doesn't have standards as to what fees should be. So what protection do I have looking for a dentist to know that the fees will be kind of ordinary? Now I mentioned the analogy with a garage. The garages do often have, per hour and other fees kind of set by legislation. Mm-hmm. What about the dental profession?
Well,
are there any standards I could look at?
My feeling is that other than going to the dental society for referral, certainly other patient recommendations, word of mouth, because if a dentist is overcharging, word of mouth will help to alleviate that. It won't control it entirely. But the other problem, of course, in dentistry, and this is true with healthcare anyway, that people really, as far as money goes, they undervalue healthcare. That's why you have the whole brouhaha about free medical care and all this stuff, because people, and especially with dentistry, people would rather buy a new car, spend $50,000 on a new car than spend $5,000 on taking care of their teeth.
Yes.
So it always seems, and sure, when I started in dentistry, a filling was a couple of bucks, maybe, but now it's more, partly rents are a lot more, salaries a lot more, and that's the other reason for the promotion of cosmetic dentistry and things like that, because it just costs so much more to operate a practice.
Yeah. What about dental insurance?
In my experience, and of course, as I said, I really have been out of dentistry for many years, but I know that dental insurance, it was always a problem because, number one, I know that when I started practicing and dental insurance was just starting to take hold, there was a yearly maximum, which
not very much.
There still is. It was $1,000, which at that time was terrific. But I know as time went by, they didn't raise it much. So that what you could get for $1,000 back then, a lot different from even when I stopped practicing. And the insurance companies, and dental insurance is expensive. In fact, the expense of dental insurance has to do with why HMOs and PPOs got going. Because what would happen is that when just the normal dental care was being covered by insurance, the fees started going up, so the premiums started going up, and in many cases the employers who were paying the premiums balked at paying a higher premium each year. So PPOs came in, which said, okay, we're now going to fix the price of what a procedure costs. So that helped to control things for a while, but then even that started going south. So that's the HMOs came in, which put the risk away from the patient, and it took the risk, it put all the risk on the practitioner, the financial risk. Because if they got a patient who needed a lot of work, then they were still getting paid the same thing as a patient who didn't need much.
I didn't realize there were dental HMOs.
Oh yes, there are.
Okay.
There are. And they, again, since cosmetic dentistry, usually even with those HMOs, is not a covered benefit. So there are even some dentists who will say, well, we can put a silver filling in that tooth, and your co-payment may be $1 or $2 or $5. Or we can put a tooth color filling in that tooth, which isn't covered, and that's going to cost you $50 or whatever the cost would be. See, and they try to promote that very often. The same thing with cosmetic work. Well, it's not covered, but we'll do it, for this price.
A few years ago, I remember there was a big issue in some people's minds about silver amalgam, I guess it's called, fillings being dangerous. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do, because I was really sort of right in the middle of that. I was very active with attending state board meetings when that was all going on. It's, I guess the best thing I could say, and you're seeing this now with the anti-vaxxers. There is a movement, and it's been around for a long time, the so-called holistic movement. And organized dentistry, and in the dental schools, they've done a lot of testing on amalgam, and sure, occasionally they'll find somebody who's allergic to it, which, same thing with non-silver amalgam fillings. People sometimes are allergic to those materials, but it's very rare. So as far as this danger, and I have a cousin.
So don't have them pulled out and replaced.
Oh, I have a cousin who did that, had that done. But she's very much into that holistic thing. And what they talk about, really, you talk about science, and it's the same thing that you hear with the vaccinations. There's science, and there is their science.
You're right.
Now, I'm not going to say they're totally wrong. Except that it's who you choose to believe.
Could be an occasional person that would have a bad reaction.
That's right. So, I mean, when I got my vaccinations, I have faith that what I was told by conventional science was correct, and I'm still upright here. So,
all right.
So,
well, have we forgotten anything that you think we should cover?
Probably, but I know there's a time limit on this. So, I essentially, I would just say that dentistry as a profession has always been a trusted profession. But when you change financial incentives, it will change some people. And I don't think dentists are immune to that. I think by a wide majority, most dentists are honest and they care for their patients, which is what the Code of Ethics says, that your primary interest should be the care of the patients. And dentistry, I think, in general, has done a very good job. But occasionally you get a bad apple, like that complaint there. Of course, not knowing more about that. About, okay, the patient had a tooth taken out, couldn't stop the bleeding, and tried to call the emergency line and didn't get a call back. Okay, that's something, but the first thing that person should do is really complain directly to the dentist about that.
Yeah.
And because there are simple things. I was even reading in that where some people, well, I put gauze on it and it was still bleeding. Well, putting gauze on it is one thing. We have to create pressure too. So if you put gauze and create pressure, and then after a half hour it's still bleeding, there's a problem. But normally that'll take care of it. But again, maybe this dentist was lax. And he's a very well-known dentist. I've seen his name a lot in the area. And I'm going to find out a little bit about the things we've been talking about. I have a sister-in-law in assisted living in Los Alamitos. So I had to find a dentist. I wanted to find a dentist close to her, and she doesn't have insurance. And I called the dental society, got the name of a dentist, spoke with the staff, said I'm set up an appointment, and I'll find out personally about some of these problems. Like,
we may have a whole new program.
That's
here.
right. That's right. That's right.
The dentist tries to find dentist, and
yeah, that's right. But because certainly fees have gone way up compared to what they were when I was even when I was practicing.
Wow.
So, but again, I understand why.
Yeah. Well, Fred, thank you so much for sharing with us. This has been very beneficial to me, and I think will be to our viewers as well.
Good, I hope so.
We've been talking with Fred Sherman, DDS retired, and he's given us some great tips on how to find a dentist and how to consider some of the ethical issues we might run into in our relationship with a dentist. Once again, Fred, thanks.
Thank you.